all for joining us today, and what a beautiful venue this is. I'm very privileged and honored to be here. So just want to take a few minutes today and share with you some of my thoughts as I look at cyber landscape and what we need to do from an instrumentation and tooling perspective. And I have full respect and understanding that as we look at cyber today, it's very easy to get ourselves into a mindset of tooling. What are the products? What are the capabilities? What are the instrumentation we need? What's the dashboarding? What does reporting look like? And you can go down these paths, but whatever avenue you take and how you look at this, it has got to be constantly and unequivocally tied to people and process. And so the title of this presentation today is really about reinventing around the concept of a platform. And no matter who you talk to or what vendor or manufacturer you speak with, a platform is not a product. It's not a singular vendor. It's not an architecture. It is the amalgamation and confluence of people, process, and technology working together and collaboratively to solve us in this cyber age. I think it's quite unique, and I'm really excited about the amount of attention and focus, the amount of publicity, the amount of media that we're getting around cyber today. It's always been a growing concern, but now in 2017, we're at this fever pitch between the breaches we're seeing in the news, the capabilities that are being brought to market, the regulatory and compliance environments that are leading some of the challenges that many security organizations face today. But we need to harness this attention. It's not lost on me that with every news cycle and every capability and every breach we see out there, it's starting to get lost in the noise. People are starting to get discouraged. Many organizations are starting to think that every dollar they spend on security is a dollar wasted because it's been a zero-sum game. It hasn't led to the epiphany. It hasn't led to that magical moment where we can definitively stand up and say, today I stopped something that would have brought us down. Today I stopped something that would have compromised millions of my customers. Today I stopped something that would have changed or altered the way I build product or the way I bring capability to market. And so as we look at this, I was just recently, the other day, telling a story and remembering a situation that I had with a healthcare organization. And I'll leave names out of it. It was a very brilliant CISO, a very capable woman in this role. But she shared a story with me that really stuck with me because it happened a few years back with HIPAA, and it's a little bit older, but it's really right now, it's more poignant than ever. She looked at HIPAA as a regulation in her healthcare. And as a healthcare provider, she took it very seriously, and right under patient care was keeping patient information as solid and secure and private as possible. And so with that regulation and the fear of prosecution, the fear of fines, and the fear that comes along with it, her organization went out and procured every tool and every system that had something to say in their marketing literature about HIPAA. And it wasn't a bad strategy, it was the strategy they employed. And so over the course of 2.5 years, they bought and procured over 70 different security tools that would help them with HIPAA regulation. And every day, the CISO, wonderful woman, would take her breaks and she'd walk around the hospital and walk on different floors and talk to some of the employees and meet with some of the patients and folks that were getting care. And she would just be part of the organization and see what they do from a daily basis. And she witnessed something really unique. And what she saw was a nurse would walk up to a nursing station and she'd walk up to the computer and she'd unlock it and she'd open up the EHR, the health records, and she'd put some notes in and she'd lock it. And about 30 seconds later, a male nurse walks up, same computer that's locked, unlocks it, opens up another healthcare record, types some notes in, locks the computer, and walks away. And as any good security practitioner would know, this is fundamentally impossible. How could a user that's logged in walk away and have another user come in and actually log into the same workstation? And so she stopped him and said, I got to understand. I just watched this go down. How did this happen? And without knowing her role or what she did for the organization, he said, oh, it's really easy. All the nurses on this floor, we get together and we set the password for the next 12 months because the healthcare organization that we work for makes us change it every 30 days. And all these security techs and tools and all the systems, it just takes too long to log out and log back in, so we just share a password. It's just easier that way. And so what I took away from that story was, oh my God, don't ever get sick. which, by the way, has not worked well for me. So that didn't work. So I have to use hospitals, I have to use healthcare. But aside from that, what I really walked away with was people aren't necessarily going to move around security because they're malicious. They're going to do it for ease of their job. So as we bring security to the organization, if we're not ever mindful of the user experience, it's going to get subverted. It's going to get stepped around, and people are going to find ways to complete their job that go outside the bounds of what we want them to do. This is directly related to the fact that within the same healthcare organization, they had multitudes of tools working, but also impacting how they delivered healthcare to their customers and to their patients. And so this is just a microcosm as we look at what we have today, which is an amazing amount of attention on the space. But what's probably most problematic is if you look at security itself, how many of you, just show of hands, and I hate doing show of hands, but I'm going to do it for this. How many of you think there are 500 security manufacturers in the world? Raise your hand. More or less? More. How many think there's 1,000? Couple hands. There are 13, as of last count, there are 1,300 manufacturers in the space of security building, designing, bringing to market security solutions for organizations that you belong to and that you participate with to deploy and use. I can't think of another industry or another vertical outside of IT, in IT, whatever, that has 1,300 manufacturers. In fact, I think I probably have to go to textiles or something like that. Maybe TV streaming services now is getting up to like the 1,300 range. It's getting insane, but that's the complexity that we have in this environment. So when I think about what do we have to do, where do we have to be focused, what is the next big evolution we need to make as a community together? And that is a platform-based approach. Now, again, I go back to the same thing. A platform is not something a singular vendor is going to bring to you. It's not something a singular product is going to do for you. It's an approach and a concept that has to embody the tooling you have, the people that support it, and the process that enables it. And it needs to stretch across all three paradigms. So as an example of this, we need to think about how tooling can work together, how it augments process, and how it enables your people. And as you look at people in this world, how are we enabling the tech that we use to enable the next generation of workflow? I have a great advisory board that's teaching me all kinds of things on how to build products. And the great piece of feedback that I saw that really impacted how we start to think about platform approaches is how do you build for the next generation of worker? A lot of us talk about millennials, and it's in every news article, millennials are changing the workforce. One way millennials are changing the workforce in security is they hate management consoles. They hate logging in, they hate looking at the interfaces, they hate playing and moving knobs and doing these things. They want an interactive and immersive experience. And so all of these technology kind of fringe and evolutions are changing how we think and what we need to do. So I'll give you my expectation of what a platform looks like and how this actually has to work. So when we think about, and I'll start on the tooling side, when we think about the tooling capabilities that we use and need to rely on from a security perspective, we have to ask the question, how can they interoperate? How do they work with each other, not only within the same vendor or manufacturer's portfolio, but how do they work together outside of that in an ecosystem? And there's three main things I think you have to think about when we have this conversation. The first is, what does integration look like and interoperability? And there's a couple ways to approach this, right? A lot of people think of it from a management console perspective or a management infrastructure. Can I manage them from the same place? Can I monitor them? Can they report from the same things? How is that streamlined? And that's an extremely important capability, but only singular. The next area that I focus on is telemetry. What is the right way to share telemetry between technology stacks? So when you think about all of the tools that you might have running in an environment, how do they make the one next to them stronger and the one next to that stronger and on down the road so that each one provides value in the chain that you wouldn't have gotten before? And that is a very, very powerful concept if you think about how we can learn from the shortcomings of our attackers. And this is a big passion area of mine, which is In order for somebody to breach a piece of infrastructure, in order for them to steal credit cards or steal PII or social security numbers or patient information, whatever it is, they fail a lot. It's not like there's a magic silver bullet out there. Many of you and many of our customers and organizations around the world have spent millions upon millions of dollars defending and building resilient networks. There isn't a silver attacker bullet. It's trial and error. In 2017, most of the attacks that we see are still very much trial and error. Take an exploit, throw it at a company. Does it work? Nope. Take the next one, throw it at it. Does it work? Nope. And keep repeating and repeating ad nauseum until something finally gets in. And the reason why that methodology has not changed, and not changed in decades, is because we as a community have not changed. We have not enabled the idea of a platform of sharing and leveraging the information from one tool to the next to make smarter decisions. So the question I ask, if you go and have this conversation with a physical security person, the conversation's vastly different, which is if you see somebody with a gun standing out in front of your home, taking notes, looking at your security cameras, watching where people are walking, checking to see if doors are locked, it's not going to take you but a few seconds to call 911 and get assistance. And yet from a digital or a cyber perspective, we allow countless attacks to hit our network and do so very little to learn from them. If I see repeated attacks from a singular source, why would I ever let that source continue to talk to me? Why wouldn't I squelch that? Why wouldn't I change that? And the answer, although very simple, comes from a long line of technical debt, which is the systems and the tooling I have in place does not enable my people or my process to quickly and agilely move information and make changes to my security posture. So management consoles are important, sharing telemetry is important, but when I look to the Holy Grail, when I look to what's most important, how we can make the most effort when we look at a platform-based approach, it's from a concept of policy enrichment. Ultimately, whether it's within my portfolio or outside, I want to harness the capability of my tech stack such that when I have two or more products working harmoniously, I have a set of policy that I can enable that I wouldn't have been able to do if they weren't working together. I'll give you a practical example, and we'll look at this from a technical lens, if you will. Many of you have instituted, and many of our organizations and people we rely on have instituted data loss prevention solutions. And yet, as they use those, they don't think about how to extend it. They think about how to augment it. And what I mean by that is, I can give you about 10 different buzzwords: CASB, proxy, cloud, AWS, all of which extend data to these entities, extend how users access data, extend how they manipulate and share data, and yet we don't think about how we extend our DLP, or data loss protection technology, to account for those new technical options. We look at it and say, what's the next product, or what's the next tooling, or what's the next solution I need to bring in to solve these challenges? And a lot of this has to do with the industry itself and that 1,300 manufacturers. So that policy enrichment concept is something near and dear to my heart and near and dear to what we are trying to accomplish. But we can't accomplish it as a standalone entity. It requires collaboration across the vendor community, the manufacturing community. It requires immense collaboration between organizations like myself and you in this audience of how you want to run a policy, how you want to run process, and how you want to enable your employees to be part of your security ecosystem. We have to be intimately tied together on this endeavor. It's the only way we're going to get real traction and make a real difference as we start to protect these organizations that we depend on. So as we look at the platform, as we start to think about this, how does this really manifest? How does this really take hold, and what do we really do? Because this isn't the first time this concept's been brought up. The concept of platform and reinventing platforms is very much been alive for the last decade. But it's never been realized because I think a lot of us look at it as somebody else's problem to solve. And so what I will offer to you guys today is that this is the first step in a much deeper collaboration. We need to start to work together, to start to share ideas. Each organization that's represented in here approaches security drastically different. And that might be dictated by the vertical you're in, or perhaps the regulation that you have to abide by, or the way you go to market from a business and a consumer perspective. But we all approach it differently. We all instrument differently. We all hire and build process differently. So to think that a manufacturer will be able to solve that unique silver bullet and come up with this great platform-based approach, living in a vacuum and just building tech, is unrealistic. And so what we've thought of and what we're focused on is enabling the organization itself to think like our customers, to approach it like our customers, to think about the problem areas that are unique to their business, and then identify ways in which my technology, coupled with many of the other vendors that are in this room and have presented for you today, can work together to collaboratively solve some of these challenges. In 2017, I cannot offer you a siloed, singular instance of a security tech that is going to solve for all aspects of our threat landscape as well as our adversary. But working with you, we can start to design and build a security program that's tailored to how you want to approach the problem space for your organization. And from that, what we can start to do is shape the process around how you use it. What are you using it for? How does it interoperate, and what is the value you get from it? Such that at the end of each year, you can holistically look at your security program as a platform and answer questions like, where did I get value? What stopped? What helped? What hindered? And what modifications do I need to make, such that a yearly review ends up in an improving security posture rather than an eroding one. I look back to simple business practices. Some of you in here may have had to deal with the wonder of budgeting that's called ZBB, or zero-based budgeting, which is essentially at the beginning of every fiscal year, you start with a zero and have to justify every dollar that your department or organization is going to spend. That exact same philosophy could be applied to security when you're looking at this from a holistic and more of a platform approach. Where did I get my value? Where did my process hinder me? And do I have the right technical staff and the right technical capabilities to be able to address this long term? So as we look at this, you've heard a lot of great topics today. You've had a lot of great speakers on a variety of different issues. What I would say is, as you look at both your roadmap of where you need to go from an IT perspective as well as from a security perspective, the concept of platform should play in the back of your head. But disregard the notion that any singular person is going to provide you a platform. It is going to be a collaboration across all of us today in the security industry, all of you in this room, and the folks that you employ and actually deliver security. And this is a great first step that we all continually get together. Let's capitalize on this fever pitch. Let's get a lot more detailed and a lot more aggressive on how we deliver and build solutions for this market. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much.